Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Local Heroes series. I'm Jen Robinson. I am the publisher and founder of Peaceful Living Wellness magazine. And this is one of my favorite things that I do on this magazine. And that is that I get to talk to different community leaders who are involved in nonprofit and not-for-profit organizations that are benefiting communities around the US and Canada. This one in particular is very close to my heart because it is right here in Charleston. And the beautiful Marie Myers is one of my neighbors. We connected actually through a business group. And then we remembered that we were neighbors and we hadn't seen each other in a few years. So it is really special to me to be able to talk to her about this amazing nonprofit that she is associated with called Gigi's Playhouse. She's bringing Gigi's Playhouse to Charleston, but we're going to talk a little bit about how Gigi's Playhouse has been of such a huge benefit to communities around the United States. So without more chitter chatter from me, I would like to introduce Marie Myers, and she's going to tell us all about Gigi's Playhouse. Marie, thank you so much for doing this with me. And I want to ask you just to let people know what Gigi's Playhouse is and how did you become involved with it?
So Gigi's Playhouse is a network of Down syndrome achievement centers located throughout the United States, and there's also a Playhouse in Mexico. There's 55 total right now, and the Playhouses offer free therapeutic, educational, and career development services for individuals with Down syndrome. How I got involved is I have a 3-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. And in one of our Moms Connection Facebook groups, there was some talk about bringing a Gigi's Playhouse to Charleston. And myself and another mom decided to join as a team and do all the legwork. And we got our final approval from the national office in February and are an official Charleston, South Carolina startup. And we have 5 other moms on our team, on our startup committee.
Oh, that is wonderful. We are going to be so lucky to have a Gigi's Playhouse here in Charleston. And what is it about the mission of Gigi's Playhouse that attracted you amongst all of the other organizations out there?
Well, I like the services and the programming that it provides children with Down syndrome, and not just children, it's prenatal all the way through adult. There's a lot of gaps in services and programming for people with Down syndrome, and it comes in and it fills those gaps. But what I love even more about it is it's the mission and the message of acceptance for all. So it extends beyond Down syndrome and it encompasses everybody.
That's so interesting. So by encompassing everybody, you're talking about the family and the community. Are you talking about other developmental challenges?
It's any type of disability, anything that makes anybody different. It's basically seeing everyone's value, understanding that people are different, respecting people's differences. It's just about being accepting for everyone, no matter, your gender, your ethnic background, your disability.
That we're all unique.
That we're all unique
at the same time.
And have value.
And have value. And that is so important in our world. I was listening to a teacher on TikTok yesterday, and she was talking about how the pandemic has really been traumatic for everybody, kids through adults. And we all need to be reminded every chance we can get that we have value, that we are not just these isolated people away from each other. And so it sounds to me like not only does Gigi's Playhouse fill some gaps for Down syndrome people, not only does it really help bolster the community broadly, but it sounds like it's also something that is going to be of incredible value as we're all recovering from the isolation of the pandemic. And I just am so grateful that Charleston is going to have this here. Tell me more a little bit about how Gigi's Playhouse has brought value to other communities, like on the ground. What happens if you're a family that you're struggling with a child with Downs or another challenge, and you go to Gigi's Playhouse? What happens when you enter those doors? And then how is that going to blossom in Charleston?
So my co-lead and I had the opportunity to go to the original Playhouse in Hoffman Estates, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago. And as soon as you step in the door, like, it is seriously the most magical. They say Disney World is like the most magical place on earth. They haven't been to a Gigi's Playhouse yet.
I love it.
It's just bright and colorful and murals, and it's just so accepting and inviting. And that's for the families, for the people with Down syndrome, but even the volunteers that come in there. I mean, you just fall in love with with the whole environment. And there is something magical about a person with Down syndrome. I don't know what it is. They're very charismatic, and they're very intuitive.
Yeah.
And they're some of the best relationships you will ever have.
Tell us a little bit more about Down syndrome. I know that most people probably sort of know what it is, but tell us more, not only how it manifests in the individual, but what it means for the family as well.
So Down syndrome is the most prevalent chromosomal disorder. There's 3 different types. So it's when you have an extra copy of the 21st chromosome. So trisomy 21, that's the most common, that is about 95%. Then you have something called mosaic Down syndrome, which is basically when you have some of the extra copies, some not. And then translocation, which I believe can be in inheritable form, and it's even less common.
Okay.
So some common features of people with Down syndrome, you notice the facial features. There is either a lack of a nasal bone or it's very reduced. Hypotonia, which is low muscle tone. There is some cognitive development, even though Down syndrome is not considered spectrum, the cognitive delays can be spectrum. It can be more severe in others.
Okay, so that's what you mean by spectrum, that it can be less severe to more severe within Down syndrome itself.
Yes. So if you have Down syndrome, you have Down syndrome, right? But the degree of intellectual disability can vary. So that's why it's really important for all people with disabilities, but especially people with Down syndrome, to be looked at individually. Especially when you talk about inclusion and mainstreaming in schools and daycares, because that's going to look different for each individual, their ability level.
Okay. And tell us a little bit more about what it's like to be a mom of a special person with Down syndrome.
Well, so I got a prenatal diagnosis at 10 weeks, and I'll be honest with you, it was very scary. I had very little knowledge of people with Down syndrome or what life was going to be like. And there is a grieving process, whether you get it prenatally or at birth, because there are a lot of unknowns. The medical community a lot of times likes to doom and gloom, and you're hit with all the worst of everything. Heart defects, the list just goes on and on and on of things that can go wrong. A lot of times you're not, it's not a congratulations. It's like, you're going to have a child with Down syndrome. And so you're stressed out during that pregnancy and figuring things out. But once that little person gets here, like, everything changes. And that's why another cool thing about Gigi's Playhouse is we're trying to change the narrative on Down syndrome, especially with prenatal diagnosis. That you need to say congratulations, and it needs to be updated facts. It needs to be resources provided, not in a 10-year-old, 15-year-old pamphlet, which is what I got, essentially. There's most communities have Down syndrome associations. There's national Down syndrome associations. There's a lot of resources out there for families that just aren't provided. But the one thing that we like to tell everybody, because we have older children, we have 4 older children, besides CJ, is she makes us all better people.
Oh, yeah.
So whether it just be more, empathetic, makes us want to try harder because we see how hard, she tries just to do everyday activities.
Yeah.
It just changes your whole mindset.
I have been very blessed in my life to know several people with Down syndrome, and I have absolutely witnessed that. I have witnessed how the smallest thing can bring somebody with Down syndrome joy. And we think, oh, it's just, we just tied our shoe, no big deal. But for some people with Down syndrome, especially older kids who we would be like, oh, why aren't they tying their shoe yet? That they did it, that's huge. And they get so excited. And I love that. It's inspirational to me. And I hope that our readers, our listeners, can take a little spoonful of sugar from that to remember not to take everything for granted in life, to enjoy and find joy in the smaller things, are what seem to be small accomplishments to us. Give ourselves credit for these small accomplishments, because our friends and some of us children with Down syndrome, we can see that joy that they get. And how awesome would that be to have more joy in our lives? Now, I know that people with Down syndrome, just like people without Down syndrome, are not always happy. What does that mean in terms of Down syndrome? Are there differences in the emotional range, or is it pretty much the same?
It's pretty much the same. More alike than different is, what we like to say. They have temper tantrums just like a normal person. When kids get older and teenagers, they go through their little hormone monsters, just like your neurotypical kids. When they get to be adults, they like to experience, romantic relationships. They like friendships. I would think the only thing that's different is it's like they were born without, I don't even know the best way to say this, but the ability to be mean, if that makes sense. Usually when you see a child hitting or anger, it's more frustration because there's either a communication barrier.
Yeah.
It's not spiteful or intentful. That's the only thing that I've really noticed, as far as the difference goes. But they're pretty much just like your regular typical kid.
Yeah. And I think that is maybe the golden nugget that we can all take from this, because so often we're still in a place in our society that we see people who are different and we don't know how to approach them. We don't know how to interact with them. And so we shy away. And what I hope our conversation is going to help bring to people is to say, hey, just because somebody has Down syndrome, or just because somebody has a child with Down syndrome, don't shy away from them. Down syndrome people are just like you and me. And that to me is just such a blessing. And again, why I'm so grateful that you're having this conversation with me right now. Now let's talk about, what is the Gigi's ripple effect?
So the Gigi's ripple effect is when families, extended families, volunteers, your donors, they come into the Playhouse, and it's that feel good feeling that you get and that magical experience, and they get so hyped up and jazzed up, they just want to go spread it to the world.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
so, it's just like if you imagine a drop of water, the actual drop is our mission and values. And then the first ripples are playhouses, second ripples are programming, and then it expands out. It's really changed my perspective on a lot of things, like just outside of downs, even how I parent my other children. Before we were in the rat race of being like really competitive, because that's how I was raised with grades and you had to, be number one. But like what I realized is like it's like a kernel of popcorn, right? You pop on your own time. Sometimes you pop quick, sometimes depending on what it is, it takes you longer. And, everybody has that thing that it just takes them longer to get.
Yeah.
And we're just kind of more chill than we used to be.
How does that feel?
It feels good. It
Good.
takes a lot of stress and anxiety off of things. My 13-year-old's an athlete. She's a cheerleader, and she gets so frustrated when she can't get something. And I'm like, and I use CJ as an example all the time. Look how long it took CJ to walk, right? But once she got it, like she's a rock star. She's, climbing, and going crazy. Same thing will happen with you when you get it.
Love it. I love it. I see that with my husband and myself as we're sending our son off to college, in that I'm like, go enjoy college. Don't worry about what you're majoring in right now. It's okay if you want to change your major. I taught in a university for 15 years. I know how much stress that can put on kids. My husband, on the other hand, is like, you're going to major in this and you're going to do this. And I just want to be like, hey man, just chill out. we're working on him. But I love that. Okay, my final question. How can the community get involved and help Gigi's Playhouse? Not only here in Charleston, which of course we're going to be broadcasting this out to all sorts of different Facebook groups in Charleston, but with Peaceful Living Wellness being a national magazine, how can people get involved in their communities as well?
So our main national website, gigisplayhouse.org, it does have a listing of all of our playhouses across the United States. In addition to any type of monetary support, our playhouses are 99% volunteer ran. So we are always looking for volunteers. And another thing about the Gigi's programming is the training is phenomenal. So if you want to be a tutor or whatever you want to be within the Playhouse, there's excellent training for it.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. And there's a variety of volunteer interest to suit your time, like what you like. It could be from anywhere, being like a reading or math tutor, or if you want to help like launch one of the big galas. In some of the older playhouses, there's huge, like gorgeous galas every year. Like, any type of interest that you have, like volunteer interest, there's a place for you.
That is beautiful, because so often organizations, they have very narrow ideas of where people can volunteer. And it sounds like, if say, I am a trained yoga teacher, if I want to come in and teach some yoga classes, that might be something I could do.
Yes, we are so grateful for all of our volunteers. And, when people volunteer with us, we want to make sure that it's a happy and a rewarding experience. And a big part of that is having you in a role that makes you happy and is a good fit.
Yeah. And that's part of the ripple effect. So
yes,
I'm envisioning that when we get Gigi's Playhouse here in Charleston, we're going to have all these lovely people come in and volunteer, because they're going to come in and go, wow, what a happy place. It's going to make them happier in their lives. It's going to make the people who are being served by Gigi's Playhouse happier. And then, just like you said, it's going to ripple out, and we're going to have an even happier, more joyful community. People here in Charleston are pretty happy, but everywhere, I think, again, we're all a little still shell-shocked from the pandemic. So
yes,
the more happiness and joy we can spread, the better.
And one other thing that I did want to mention about Gigi's Playhouse, even though they're, Down syndrome achievement centers and some of the programming is more tailored to people with Down syndrome, programming, everybody's welcome to programming. So, whether you're neurotypical or if you have autism or, whatever it may be, every person is welcome to the programming.
Wow, that is really amazing. Now, I know that you are, as of our last conversation, you here in Charleston are in the process of fundraising to open the Playhouse. Is that still the case?
Yes. So we're in phase 1 of our fundraising. We will be hosting our first meet and greet to the our Down syndrome community and organizations that serve our community in July. But once we go into phase 2, we're planning on doing some events. Not a gala this year. Next year, we might try to do a small gala, but we are going to host a Gigi Fit 5K in next spring.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to be out and about in the community a lot within the next 6 months.
And how can people, both here in Charleston and nationally, I mean, you talked about going on the national website, and we will have all the links in the magazine. I'm writing a blog about this. We will have all the links below this video on our YouTube channel, as well as on all of our social media platforms. What about here in Charleston? Do they go to Gigi's Playhouse Charleston?
Yes, so we have our own website, Gigi's Playhouse Charleston. That they can sign up to join our newsletter, our Facebook page, to follow our progress. For any businesses, we do have corporate initiatives for diversity and inclusion through iacceptyou.org and Generation G, for schools also. So there's a lot of ways and resources for everybody in the community to be involved.
That is fantastic. And again, y'all, I'm going to have all of those links everywhere on Peaceful Living Wellness. You won't be able to miss them. You can go into any of the search engines, on the website, on the social media platforms, put in Gigi's Playhouse and all your links will come up. So there is no excuse not to get involved in some way or another in this wonderful, wonderful organization. Marie Myers, thank you so much for having us with me. It's just been, I know I use this word a lot. It's part of Peaceful Living Wellness. It's been joyous. And is there anything else you would like to add?
I think we covered a lot of information and, just be kind, be accepting, and be generous. That's the tagline for #GenerationG.
Oh my gosh. And on that note, we shall end. Take that with you, y'all. I love that she's giving you that gift. Bye now.